The reason weight loss remains a long-standing and repeatedly discussed topic is not because it is new, but because it is closely tied to everyday life. Almost everyone, at some stage in their life, has seriously thought about losing weight and made a firm decision to take action. Yet, very few people are able to truly maintain the results in the long term. The problem has never been a lack of information. The real issue is that most people start with the wrong understanding of what weight loss actually is. It is often treated as a short-term task, something that requires enduring discomfort, suppressing desire, and proving one's willpower and self-control. When weight loss is framed in this way, failure is almost inevitable. In reality, weight loss is not about fighting against yourself. It is a process of rethinking how you live and how you make choices. Hi everyone, I'm Eric, a cat who dreams of becoming a philosopher. This is the place where I share my thoughts and explore new ideas with you all. So, let's dive into today's topic. When many people talk about losing weight, their first reaction is to set clear goals and immediately start making plans. How many kilograms to lose within a certain time, what to eat each day, and when to exercise. But in reality, the true first step in weight loss is not these concrete and surface-level arrangements. The real first step is finding a reason strong enough to convince yourself why you should not continue maintaining your current weight, or becoming even heavier. This reason is not meant to motivate emotion. It is meant to establish a clear psychological boundary. The reason for this is simple. In terms of behavior, people are more likely to take sustained action to avoid negative outcomes than to pursue positive ideals. If someone loses weight purely to look better, once the hardship involved exceeds what they originally imagined, it is easy to feel that the effort is not worth it and to give up halfway. But if a person clearly understands that maintaining the status quo will continue to bring health risks, physical discomfort, restricted movement, and even long-term self-disgust, then the pain of weight loss itself has to be more than these consequences for them to give up. In other words, negative reasons create a pressure threshold that makes it harder to slip back into the old state. This is not pessimistic. It is a more realistic, human-centered approach. Economics has long pointed out that people care more about losses than gains. Starting weight loss from the belief that the current situation should not continue is, in fact, an application of our natural tendency to avoid loss. This greatly reduces the likelihood of giving up and makes weight loss far easier to sustain over time. In most people's minds, failure at weight loss is often explained as a lack of willpower or insufficient self-discipline. However, this understanding is actually quite superficial. What truly causes weight loss to break down repeatedly is not a complete unwillingness to try, but a lazy mindset that chooses convenience and avoids adjustment. This kind of laziness does not always show up as a lack of action. Rather, it appears as thinking that stays stuck in the same place. At the start of weight loss, many people look for methods that seem the most direct and efficient, hoping to achieve the greatest results with the least mental effort. As a result, they copy diet advice from the internet or force themselves to follow exercise plans that do not fit their daily rhythm. When the body or emotions begin to resist, these approaches naturally become difficult to sustain, and weight loss turns into an on and off process. What is truly difficult is that adjusting your approach requires extra patience and self-reflection. Re-examining lifestyle habits and admitting that certain methods are not right for you often takes more effort than simply giving up. As a result, laziness appears in the form of rationalization, allowing people to stop rather than continue correcting their direction. When this pattern repeats, failure and weight loss becomes habitual. In the long run, this lazy mindset also shapes how a person views change itself. When failure is repeatedly justified, people gradually lower their expectations of themselves and may even begin to accept the status quo, believing that change simply is not for them. This psychological shift is the real reason weight loss comes to a standstill. When many people start trying to lose weight, they do not realize that they are actually mixing together two different levels of goals. Weight loss itself is simply about reducing body weight, while shaping the body involves muscle balance, body structure, and long-term usage patterns. The difficulty and cost of these two goals are not the same. Shaping the body is clearly more demanding than losing weight. It requires higher intensity training, stricter dietary control, and a much longer period of sustained commitment. If someone only wants to lose weight but uses methods designed for body shaping, they are effectively adding extra burden to the original task. This burden often shows up in everyday life. The training frequency, exercise intensity, and recovery demands required for body shaping take up a great deal of time and energy, and significantly disrupt daily routines. For someone whose goal is simply to reduce weight, these demands are unnecessary, yet they make weight loss feel complicated and heavy. When the cost of weight loss exceeds what the goal itself requires, maintaining it becomes far more difficult. Many cases of failed weight loss are not the result of using the wrong method, but of using an excessive one. Applying body shaping standards to weight loss turns every attempt into a high-pressure task, where even a small relaxation is seen as failure. Over time, tolerance for this level of pressure drops quickly, and people eventually abandon the entire plan. For this reason, clearly separating weight loss from body shaping is a key factor in improving success rates. When the goal is simple, the method has room to become lighter, and weight loss becomes much easier to sustain. For a long time, healthy eating has been endlessly amplified in public messaging, almost as if the moment we talk about health, it must be equated with restriction, suppression, or even food that is difficult to swallow. This approach often causes people to overlook one important premise: eating should bring satisfaction, not simply become an exercise in endurance. When health is pushed to the extreme and enjoyment is completely removed, food naturally becomes something people resist, and weight loss starts off burdened with psychological pressure. Many people struggle to maintain healthy eating in the long term, not because they lack self-control, but because the way they are eating is simply not sustainable. Consistently eating food that offers no satisfaction creates resentment towards meals and, eventually, towards healthy eating itself, often leading to rebound behavior. This outcome is frequently misunderstood as weak willpower, when in reality the problem lies in a poorly balanced approach. In practice, weight loss does not mean completely eliminating so-called unhealthy foods. With the right balance of nutrients and overall intake, even high-calorie or high-fat foods can still have a place during the weight loss process. The key is not whether a food carries a healthy label, but whether it appears in a reasonable amount and at an appropriate frequency. When healthy eating no longer demands the sacrifice of enjoyment, but instead returns to balance and structure, weight loss can truly become part of everyday life. And only then does it have a real chance of being sustained over the long term. When people talk about exercise for weight loss, the first thing many think of is running. And precisely because they dislike running, they end up giving up on the idea of weight loss altogether. In reality, this is a very common misunderstanding. What weight loss truly requires is not a specific type of exercise, but activity that can consistently burn calories. As long as the body stays active for extended periods, the form really matter. It still has value for weight loss. There are far more ways to burn calories than most people realize. Walking, climbing stairs, doing household chores, standing while working, and even hobbies that require focus and physical coordination can all increase energy expenditure without us noticing. When people stop forcing themselves to do exercises they dislike and instead choose activities that fit more naturally into daily life, resistance to weight loss drops significantly. In the long run, consistency matters far more than the intensity of any single workout. When choosing how to be active, it is also important to consider psychological comfort and daily routine. If an activity requires special scheduling, changing equipment, or traveling out of the way, it is often abandoned quickly because it feels like a hassle. By contrast, activities that blend naturally into everyday life are much easier to maintain. Walking more during the commute or increasing movement at home may seem small, but over time they add up to real results. Weight loss does not always require deliberate exercise. It simply requires moving more than before. As long as overall activity levels increase, even modest changes will, over time, show up in both body weight and physical fitness. When trying to lose weight, many people habitually follow what others describe as the fastest or most effective methods, while overlooking the fact that everyone's lifestyle and limitations are different. A method that works well for one person can become an unmanageable burden for another. Weight loss often fails not because the method itself is wrong, but because the real factors of time, cost, and daily rhythm are ignored. When exercise or dietary plans take up too much time, pressure builds, resistance follows, and people eventually give up. For this reason, rather than chasing surface-level efficiency, it is far more important to find approaches that can run alongside everyday life. If calorie-burning activities can be completed without sacrificing additional time, weight loss becomes much easier to maintain in the long term, and far more realistic. True efficiency is not about burning the most calories per hour, but about whether something can be sustained within existing life conditions. For people with limited time, scheduling extra workouts is itself a burden. Even highly effective methods are difficult to maintain over time. By contrast, when calorie-burning activities are spread across tasks that already have to be done, such as commuting, working, or daily movement, weight loss no longer demands extra willpower. This low-interference approach actually fits the reality of most people's lives far better. When weight loss methods no longer clash with daily life, people are less likely to make excuses around time, the cost of execution drops, and the likelihood of success naturally increases. This is the key to whether weight loss can truly succeed in the long run. In reality, there is no direct cause and effect relationship between being overweight and being unattractive. Whether someone is considered good-looking is not determined purely by body shape. What truly influences how others perceive us is our attitude towards ourselves and our level of self-acceptance. When someone may be heavier but is able to face others openly and genuinely accept themselves from the inside out, the label of ugly is far less likely to be placed upon them. Many overweight people are seen as unattractive not because of their size, but because they are not choosing their situation willingly. They want to change, but are unable to do so. When someone remains in a long-term state of wanting to be slimmer but failing to achieve it, their sense of self gradually declines. This lack of confidence shows itself through facial expressions, posture, and behavior, and ultimately affects their overall appearance. For this reason, the connection between fat and ugly does not come from the body, but from psychological struggle. When a person cannot accept their body and, at the same time, takes no action to change it, a deep sense of long-term frustration often develops. This emotion slowly influences the way they stand, speak, and make eye contact, making them appear withdrawn and lacking in confidence. Over time, what others perceive is no longer body size itself, but the atmosphere of self-rejection. And this is the true reason fat and ugliness become linked. As a person gradually rebuilds self-acceptance, even if their external conditions have not yet changed, they begin to care for themselves in small details. How they dress, how they carry themselves, and how they express emotion. These changes do not necessarily come from improved appearance, but from no longer denying oneself. And this alone can bring about a positive shift in overall impression. True ugliness is not an inborn limitation of appearance. but a state in which a person chooses to allow themselves to stop improving. Very often, what people call ugly is simply a difference in personal taste and aesthetic preference. An appearance that is not appreciated today does not mean it will never be. However, when someone completely loses the willingness to adjust or improve their appearance, whether in how they dress, how they carry themselves, or even basic grooming, that state gradually becomes fixed. What people truly find unattractive is not external conditions, but an attitude that has no expectation of change. Without action, appearance naturally remains the same, and time only magnifies existing problems. By contrast, as long as someone is willing to make small adjustments for themselves, even if their starting point is unremarkable, consistent action will create visible differences. Ugliness is not an outcome, it is a choice. And allowing oneself to remain stuck is the real reason it persists. Many people stay in an unsatisfactory state of appearance for long periods not because they lack the ability to change, but because they have already given up hope internally. When someone convinces themselves, "This is just how I am," they begin to justify every form of inaction, no longer making even the most basic efforts to improve. Over time, this passive attitude shows in their overall image, making them appear disheveled and lacking vitality. What truly makes someone unattractive is not limited physical features, but long-term neglect of their own state. The moment neglect stops, change has already begun. Weight loss has never been merely about changing numbers on a scale. It is a process of how a person sees themselves and how they choose to live. When the mindset is right and the method fits, change no longer depends on sheer willpower. It happens naturally. What truly sustains results is not short-term endurance, but a long-term willingness to take responsibility for oneself. That kind of change is the outcome truly worth pursuing. That's all for this video. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, and comment. Every like, subscribe, and comment are a contribution to solving those difficult questions. I look forward to your joining our discussion and making a contribution to solving the difficult questions. Once again, thank you for your watching. Goodbye!